Good night. I am Akatosh Plus, but you can call me JoJo. Tonight, I will be reading Halo Beta, one of my favorite gaming creepypastas. At the end, I will talk about my thoughts towards the story and what I think could make it better. For any story suggestions, contact me via Discord. My username is in the channel description. Let's begin. I love cut content. Not because it was cut, no, but because it's different sometimes, you know? It gives you a unique peek into the minds of the writers or developers. Sometimes it gives you a whole new experience, like lost songs or cut levels. Occasionally it just gives you a new way to get your ass whooped, like the Flood Juggernauts from Halo 2. I love hearing about the alternate ideas, alternate stories and takes, and alternate character stories that were planned. Most of all, I like experiencing the cut content myself. From hunting down bands, obscure demo songs, to playing beta versions of games. It's digital archaeology. As you unearth the old, you discover new layers, new experiences. Sometimes you unearth things that change history. Think about how it would feel if you discovered your favorite band didn't release an album, and you discovered it. It would be transcendental. Now, think about how it feels for those of us who hunt those things, those of us that try to unearth them. Sometimes you even have videos of lands few men have tread, lands that people pour days, weeks, even months of their lives into, lands that have withered and died, placed in the recycling bin, or old hard drives or disks. These lands are always the motherlode for those like us. In particular, I speak of Installation 04, a Halo ring, an alien-built ring world, imagined and coded by Bungie Studios, a world that went through many revisions. Once upon a time, it was a crumbling relic, chunks already coming off of it. In that world, the Master Chief could ride blind wolves and fight dinosaurs. Elites had hand-heeled shields, and the Prophet was a rank held by few elites. Not a species. An alternate universe full of promise, and one that was aborted. In another world, Cortana's rampancy set in far sooner, due to the flood of knowledge she stole from the archives of the installation, mad with power. This universe's Cortana was to try to dominate the universe with Halo. This Cortana, the dark mirror of the main series Cortana, was also never to be. In a universe aborted near the end, Captain Key's proto-grave mine fort would have been burnt with the cut flamethrower, and a skull taken from it. But Bungie was so disturbed by the skull model they made, a charred one based on real pictures of charred skulls, it too was removed. But there's something far more grand than discovering that which is known to be. That something is discovering something which has never been known. Something that even the company never discusses. That is something I discovered. It all started with a fatal act of gravity, the menace of all things. In this case, the unrelenting, unfeeling force murdered an innocent Xbox. Well, I say innocent, but I'm likely to die of high blood pressure one day due to that thing. So maybe not so innocent. All that matters is that I, a clumsy idiot, dropped my Xbox, a device infamous for working quite well as a cinder block, and something went wrong inside. It no longer could read discs. I swore, yelled at some things, tortured enemies in some games and calmed down, before coming to a decision. Xboxes, one day, will be rare, so I decided I'd pony up the cash to get a new one that actually worked. I thought about where I could get an Xbox. Obviously, GameStop won't carry them. So this solution was out. All of my friends had GameCubes and PlayStation 2s, and I doubt any would have sold me an Xbox even if they had one. And the town's annual garage sale weekend wasn't for several more months, so I left with one option, the internet. I pondered the options and decided that Amazon was the safest bet, while eBay was the one more likely to save me money. As I was being foolish and even spending this cash, I decided to go with the eBay route. That said, I wasn't going to buy from Shady Old Guy 6969 or anything like that. only highly rated, reputable sellers. I'm impulsive, not dumb. Searching around, I found an Xbox for cheap, with a buy-it-now price that was within my budget, and in addition, the seller had hundreds of great reviews. The description indicated that the seller was a former employee of Bungie, and they had this Xbox they had taken home a while back, after being given permission, and it worked like it was made yesterday. I quickly bought it up, and waited for it to show up, which it did as fast as packages usually do. When it got to my home, I gleefully slashed through the obscene amounts of packing tape and lifted the Xbox out of the packing peanuts. I would have lifted it over my head Link style, but I figured if I dropped it, I'd crack my skull open. So after finding the wires and setting it up, I plugged in a controller and decided to look at the hard drive. I hoped in vain to find the Halo 2E3 game in there, but I was let down. There were plenty of saved games from Half-Life 2 to Tony Hawk, but something caught my eye. Under the saves for Halo was another Halo thing. It just said Halo Beta. I did what any fanboy would do. I squealed and then checked it out. It had an option I hadn't seen before. Play. I hit that button so hard it could have filed charges. That's an odd line. The game started up identical, and everything looked normal. All the missions were there. All the multiplayer maps. Everything. Everything was unlocked, and all the descriptions and names that were the same. I did what seemed most logical. Started on Pillar of Autumn, set the game to Heroic, and sat down for a night of evolved combat. Of course, I did all the fun stuff like blasting caps and keys. That was the first time I discovered a difference. In the normal game, Cortana shouts that you've gone rampant, leftover writing from a time before the Master Chief was just an augmented human. Invincible Marines came in and riddled you with bullets. You die and go back to the last checkpoint. I often made a game out of it. Shoot keys, start stopwatch, end it when I finally die. I had gotten quite good at it, painting the Autumn's bridge red and taking quite a long while to die. So imagine my surprise when I opened fire and the Marines just started dying. I felt bad killing Sergeant Johnson because he's awesome, but was still rather shocked when they were dead. I continued the level, wondering what was going to happen next. All the Marines I encountered were hostile, which was unsurprising, and I had to fight my way through enemies, both human and Covenant. I thought back to Marathon and the Bobs. This was typical Bungie, letting you slaughter your allies for fun, and to make the game harder for yourself. Cortana did her usual dialogue, and we fought our way onto the Bumblebee escape pod. However, this is where the next change happened. In the original game, a Marine falls just in front of Chief, and Chief makes sure he doesn't get left behind, making them the last two on. In this, however, Chief ignored the Marine and tossed a grenade into the pod. He then climbed in, and the seats are now filled with dead Marines, like when the pod crashes. Chief pushed the body of the pilot out of her chair and climbed in the seat. Flying it down, text came up, subtitles really, with it indicating Cortana was saying, "I don't know what the hell has gone wrong with you, but seeing as we're stuck together, we might as well work together." There was no voice, which made sense if Jen had never recorded the line. Chief replied to her, "Sounds good to me." Despite Chief's piloting, the Bumblebee still crashed, and there was no dialogue of the pilot screaming as it went down. This wasn't surprising either, seeing as she was dead. After the level Halo started, Cortana said that with Keys dead, the Autumn was completely destroyed on impact. That was the first "oh shit" moment for me. As for those who haven't played the game, you have to blow up the Autumn to destroy the ring. Without the Autumn, that was going to be hard, to say the least. However, after that, the level played normally, with the difference being that the Marines were still hostile. Despite that, Foehammer was not, and you were still supposed to go rescue the various trapped Marines. I managed to dodge them and kill the Covenant, and they boarded Foehammer's Pelican dropship, as always. However, my Warthog was gunnerless because I had to kill him before he killed me. I finished the level, and the Truth and Reconciliation, the next level, began. I expected to have to kill all my Marines, but instead, Johnson, back from the dead as he often does in this first Halo game, said the chief. Look, you killed Keys, hell, you even killed me, but we're both stuck here together. So, why don't we work together and take this goddamn ship? We can try to kill each other later, understand? This was subtitled, and didn't make a good explanation for why they would be boarding the ship if Captain Keyes wasn't on it. At this point, I was actually pretty impressed. Rather than having killing Keyes be a roadblock, they apparently were intending it as an alternate evil path, with what seemed to be building to a bleaker ending. The level continued as usual, and after getting some Marines from the cell block, without Keyes, Cortana declared to the group that the Covenant forces were far too large to overtake, and that they had to get off the ship. Subtitles only, of course. However, the chapter is still called Shut Up and Get Behind Me, Sir. A simple oversight from being in beta. Apparently, after that, the story progressed pretty much as normal, with minor changes for the lack of Keyes in the autumn, until we return to the Truth and Reconciliation and the level Keyes. Now, in the normal game, the Flood, basically the Zerg combined with head crabs, have been released and taken Keyes. As I said before, he is being turned into a new grave mind, the Flood hive mind. However, without Captain Keyes, things were different. In Keyes, you're seeking to find him to use his neural implants to detonate the Pillar of Autumn and destroy Halo, as you have learned that it was part of the array that, once fired, will destroy all biomatter in the galaxy. In this Keyesless version of Keyes, you're seeking to take the Truth and Reconciliation, or what's left of it, and detonate it instead. Cortana's humorous teleportation mistake was still there, and it was surreal to see them bonding despite John's broken moral compass. So I slogged through the level with one of my least favorites after, the library, and reached the bridge. However, there was no proto-grave mine. I was surprised that the Flood hadn't started building one. But then it dawned on me that there is no proper base for it in the universe. With so few Marines on Halo due to the total destruction of the Autumn, along with the fact that the Arbiter would obviously still survive, the Flood didn't have a brilliant mind to start with. The cutscene, far different from the usual, began. Chief inserted Cortana's chip into the holo panel. Cortana infiltrated the network, hacking into its systems only to discover that, due to the damage, it couldn't self-destruct. The Flood began to swarm into the room, and John quickly grabbed Cortana's chip, put it back in his head, and tried to fight, but failed. They swarmed him, and quickly tore apart the large portions of the chest piece of his armor. Without it, a Flood infection form leaped onto him and quickly burrowed into him, much like how Flood infections happen in Halo 3. It took me a moment to realize what had just happened. John was now taken by the Flood, and with him, Cortana, and with her, Halo's index. Without the index, Halo can't even fire. I wondered what was going to happen next, as the game had now gone far off the rails. The screen went black, before going to the loading screen. What started next surprised me. A large grave mine now resided in Halo's control room, in possession of 343 Guilty Spark, monitor of Installation 04. Cortana's giant form was at the control room's panel once more, but rather than her usual color changing while there, she was red, like Rampant Cortana in Halo 4. The grave mine, speaking in iambic septimeter, as always, but only in subtitles, told Cortana to activate the slipspace drive, Halo equivalent of a warp drive, and set course for Earth. The grave mine then lowered a tentacle down and placed a combat form on the ground. The combat form, however, wasn't a normal one. Instead, it was a headless one, with the Spartan armor that the Master Chief wore, repaired and on the body. Then it dawned on me that it was Chief, and the head was just kept in the grave mine. Gravemind placed the helmet on it, and the helmet attached to the suit as it usually would. A loading screen came up, and I waited, eager to find out what would happen next. When it finished loading, Installation 04 came out of slipspace into orbit around Earth. The orbital Mac cannons fired at it, but to no avail, and hordes of reprogrammed sentinels swarmed the cannons, destroying them with ease. Then, Flood drop pods launched from the commandeered Halo down to Africa, at what I assumed was going to be New Mombasa. I turned out to be right. The game went to first person, from the view of Flood Chief, and the pod landed, with him in it, in the city, which seemed to be a very early version of the E3 demo version. From there, the only objective was to destroy the human population, which was quite easy, as few even fought back. After the first few city blocks, however, the Marines began to arrive in full force. Sadly for them, I had an army of Flood allies, and they too were overrun, and surprisingly infected. I wondered why Bungie didn't use that until Halo 3, but I figured they just didn't like how it looked, as it did look rather bad. I continued on, enjoying the darker outcome, and finished the level. The cutscene began, and flood pods were shown launching down to Earth, blanketing it. It then cut to the Gravemind in Cortana. As Gravemind gloated, giving his usual lines how the Flood were the good guys and the next step for all species, Cortana flickered blue several times before staying that way. She pulled out the index and teleported Sergeant Johnson onto the bridge, who, according to canon, is immune to the Flood. She gave Johnson the index, as only a human can activate Halo, and told him to activate it quick before, as she said, Chief, no, that thing, noticed. As there was once more subtitles, I assumed she whispered it. Johnson activated the Halo, and firing began. With the Gravemind finally catching on far too late, it showed all 7 Halos activating, and then, shockingly, a shot of the Ark, although not nearly as pretty as it is in Halo 3. They fired, and it showed all the various species that were in the first Halo being disintegrated in various locations, even places like High Charity and St. Helios. As this finished, it cut to Cortana, flickering red, blue, and purple, her default color in the first Halo, sitting down, looking around the desolate installation. For the first time in a while, she spoke, with actual dialogue. Somberly, she said, I have defied gods and demons. I am your shield, I am your sword, it asked, and I answered. For a moment of safety, I released damnation onto the stars. This is the way the world ends. I am a monument to all of your sins. The credits rolled, playing what sounded like an Halo version of the Halo 2 track, Never Forget, Cortana flickering in the background. My mind was blown. Interpretations raced through my head as I quickly went to the mission select to do it on Legendary. As the games almost always have a slightly different end on Legendary, to my anger, the alternate final mission was absent, dedicated, and obsessive. I started up Pillar of Autumn on Legendary and killed Keys, fighting through the entire game. As the credits ended once more, I realized it was, and had been, slowly zooming in on Cortana. After her face filled the screen, she whispered, I see you, and giggled. Startled, I let out a shriek. Then, I laughed. One good prank by Bungie for the most dedicated players. In one Legendary ending, an elite cuddles Johnson, and in another, Cortana scared the shit out of you. I was impressed, but saddened that the alternate story was cut, but you can never make a sequel out of that, so chances are Microsoft told them to remove it. I messaged a seller on eBay and told him about his forgotten save data, and he messaged me back, asking if I had discovered the secret yet, and after telling him yes, he sent back a smiling and said, just so I don't get sued, for your eyes only, okay? And I agreed. I still revisit that alternate Halo sometimes. So that was Halo Beta. Like I said before, it's one of my favorite gaming creepypastas. Now I know it ain't perfect, and it's got some flaws, but it's also got some really cool, unique things that no other gaming creepypasta really does. I quite enjoy that final comment about the author sometimes going back to it, which is a completely realistic thing. I mean, I know if I came across a spooky beta version of Halo, one of my favorite games ever, and it had this cool alternate campaign, I know I would keep it and keep playing it. But there are some other things that I would like to see cut. Firstly, the beginning has way too much fluff, and I'm not a fan of the inclusion of the Ark and the 7 different Halo arrays. And I also really dislike how the author chose to constantly call Chief John. Now, you couldn't tell in this narration because I changed it to Chief. I'm not sure if Chief's name was established as John by the time Halo 1 was being made. I'm pretty sure that was a thing that came out in a book. It's just one thing that annoys me, and I changed it here really for myself. If you like Chief being called John, then we'll find a different creepypasta reading. Sorry if this reading was bad or mediocre. This is my first ever time doing this. And it's like 2 a.m. Like I said in the intro, my Discord is Akatosh Plus. Send me a friend request if you want to chat with me, send me some reading suggestions. This is JoJo, signing out. No, that's fucking lame. This is... Good night. Good night. I'm just ending with good night.